First, the good news. Asami's back. The bad news? It takes about 9.5 minutes until the movie starts, thanks to all of the flashbacks. So unless you want to watch Nurse Nozomi pleasuring herself, you can skip that bit. Hi, I'm the Artie Dans and welcome to this video on the third of the 5 Lust of the Dead movies. Compared to part 2, this movie is a slow burn at the start, but then ramps it up right at the end. In part 3, we discover that the scientists think they have found a way to get the toxic men to stop attacking women, and it's to do with making them remember about love. However, that backfires on them when it turns out their toxic male subject is actually gay, and that's the reason it doesn't want to attack women. Although hilariously, the gay toxic male zombie wipes out quite a few of the otakus. Speaking of otaku, we find out that Nozomi has accidentally brought the original otaku from part 1 back to life as a clone when she was trying to clone Kane, the character played by Asami. She's created an army of Kane clones who she is hoping to use to rescue and protect Momoko. And who's she protecting her from? Well, it's not the Otaku army, who decide to wage an all-out war with the Amazon safe house using the toxic men zombies, but it's with the cyborg Anne, the gift from the US Army who looks like the schoolgirl from part 1. Anne is about to enact something called Project Herod, a reference to the New Testament where King Herod ordered the slaughter of all infants under 2 years old. Anne's mission is to kill Momoko's baby. And the movie then ends with a cliffhanger where all 4 girls from the first movie are reunited, alongside with the otaku. So far, this feels like the weakest of the 3 movies. Weakest in terms of the dark atmosphere of the movie, and definitely weakest in terms of technical quality, with some really bad audio with the dialogue where it's too muffled and low, and then it's crystal clear. And this happens even in the same scene. Add to that the very poor green screen effects, which are worse than the first 2 movies, and you've got a movie that feels very technically rushed. Which makes sense because the amount of visual effects in this movie that aren't practical have very much been reduced. A bit of trivia if you've watched any other video on my channel, but one of the music tracks here is from the very first strip mahjong movie, which is kind of weird as the movies don't seem to have any other connection. The previous movies have all been about exploring certain themes, and they're continued in part 3, only there aren't as many. In this film, the director has explored the culture of women sexually assaulting men for fun, the concept of same-sex couples, the dangers of idol worshipping, practicing safe sex to avoid, well, I was going to say STDs, but in this case, it's toxic man disease, and sexless marriages. Speaking of the director, I missed this in the previous film, but in this film and part 2, he cameos as the otaku preacher. Awesome. Now to the serious talk. How much skin is in this film? Well, the director has gone all out in this film, and it appears that almost everyone, except 3 of our 4 leading ladies, get their assets out in this film. Every woman, from the guards to the 2 scientists, the annoying schoolgirl that seduces Shinji, and the rest of the survivors in the shelter. They're all either ex or at the time, current AV stars. You can go look them up online if you want to see some more. Something funny I did notice, at the start when the women are having their shower at the courtyard, I noticed that none of them were getting their hair wet. Strange. And another scene that I thought was odd. When Maki enters the scientist's room and sees toxic man Sabu and gets frightened he will attack her, one of the scientists pulls up Maki's top to show him her breasts to prove he was safe to be around. Why didn't she flash her own boobs to him? Why did she have to torment poor Maki? And my third, odd but funny point involves Shinji. The scientists want to collect his sperm sample to test, but they want Maki to collect it by having sex with Shinji. Why not just ask Shinji to manually provide a sample, if you know what I mean? But the end of this is bonkers. Literally bonkers. Everybody is just bonking like crazy. Almost all of the women and some of the otaku die, and we've got a showdown leading into part 4. I hope part 4 is better than this, because so far I think this is the weakest of the series story-wise. Not weakest in boobs though, there's more pairs here than I can count. So come back next week where I'm going to check out part 4 in the series. If you've seen them, what did you think? Thank you for watching this review. Please don't forget to press the like button and consider subscribing to support the channel.